The Greatest Showman's Secrets to Wealth, P.T. Barnum's Golden Rules for Making Money. In a time when the world marveled at spectacles beyond imagination, one man stood above the rest, Phineas Taylor Barnum. A master of entertainment, a cunning entrepreneur, and a legendary showman, Barnum understood the art of turning dreams into gold. He amassed and lost vast fortunes, captivated kings and queens, and enthralled audiences with his genius, wit, and eloquence. But beyond the dazzling lights and roaring applause lay a deeper truth, secrets of wealth and success that he had mastered over a lifetime. Now, for the first time, these golden rules for making money are revealed. P.T. Barnum, the man who turned curiosity into a currency and spectacle into success, shares his most profound insights on accumulating vast sums of wealth. His wisdom is not for the privileged few, but for anyone with ambition, persistence, and the willingness to learn. Barnum's life was a grand performance, but behind the curtains was a mind that understood business like no other. He knew that success was not merely about making money, it was about creating value, seizing opportunities, and using one's unique talents to their fullest potential. His principles are timeless, guiding both the dreamers and the doers on their path to financial triumph. Whether you are an aspiring entrepreneur, a business enthusiast, or someone simply seeking financial independence, the greatest showman in the history of the universe offers a treasure trove of knowledge. Learn from the man who built empires from mere ideas, who understood human nature like no other, and who left behind a legacy that continues to inspire generations. Step into the mind of P.T. Barnum and discover how you too can build a fortune, not by chance but by choice. The secrets to wealth await those bold enough to claim them. The Art of Money. Getting in the vast and resource-rich land of the United States, opportunities for financial success are abundant. For those in good health and willing to engage in any respectable occupation, making money is not a formidable task. However, accumulating wealth is only half the battle. Keeping it is the real challenge. Dr. Franklin wisely remarked, "The road to wealth is as plain as the road to the mill." Simply put, financial success comes from spending less than one earns. Yet, despite its simplicity, many people struggle with this fundamental principle. Charles Dickens's character, Mr. Micawber, illustrated this perfectly. Earning £20 a year but spending £20.06 leads to misery, whereas spending only £19.06 ensures happiness. While many acknowledge the importance of economy, they often misunderstand its true essence. Some believe that pinching pennies on trivial expenses, such as saving candle stubs or reducing household expenditures, equates to financial prudence. However, these same individuals often waste money in other, less obvious ways. This selective economy leads to false security, as they fail to recognize the broader financial picture. For example, a frugal housewife may scrimp on household lighting to save a few dollars annually, but then squander money on extravagant clothing or unnecessary luxuries. Similarly, a businessman may meticulously conserve office supplies but indulge in lavish social events, undermining his supposed thrift. This is the very definition of being penny wise and pound foolish. True economy and financial independence. True economy lies in ensuring that one's income consistently exceeds expenditures. This does not mean adopting a miserly existence, but rather practicing mindful spending. If necessary, wear old clothes a little longer, forgo unnecessary luxuries, and prioritize savings. A disciplined approach to finances ensures long-term stability and prosperity. One effective method to curb wasteful spending is to document all expenses. By categorizing expenditures into necessities and luxuries, one gains clarity on where money is truly going. Often, the luxuries column far outweighs the necessities, revealing a pattern of indulgence that, if controlled, could lead to financial security. Dr. Franklin aptly noted that people often ruin themselves by focusing on the opinions of others. Many individuals live beyond their means, driven by a desire to impress. A man earning a modest salary may rent an expensive carriage to appear wealthy, while his wife struggles to make ends meet. Similarly, women may compete in fashion excesses, straining family finances in the process. These illusions of wealth lead to financial ruin rather than genuine prosperity. Instead of succumbing to social pressures, individuals should focus on financial discipline, spending within their means and saving consistently. Wealth accumulation requires a deliberate effort to resist unnecessary expenditures and prioritize long-term security over short-term gratification. The perils of sudden prosperity. Prosperity, when sudden, can be more destructive than adversity. Many who experience financial success expand their lifestyles too quickly, leading to financial instability. An individual earning a comfortable income may, upon receiving a raise, immediately upgrade their lifestyle, purchasing luxurious furniture, moving to a grander home, and adopting expensive habits. Such unchecked extravagance often leads to financial distress. One businessman shared his experience of purchasing an elegant sofa, which led to a series of costly purchases to match its grandeur. The domino effect resulted in a lifestyle that cost $30,000, whereas he once lived comfortably on far less. Without careful financial planning, even substantial incomes can be depleted. Health as the foundation of wealth. A key yet often overlooked component of financial success is good health. A sickly individual lacks the energy, ambition, and focus required to accumulate and manage wealth effectively. While some health issues are unavoidable, many arise from neglecting the fundamental principles of well-being. Ignoring the laws of health, such as proper nutrition, exercise, and rest, leads to long-term suffering, impacting one's ability to work and prosper. Many individuals knowingly harm themselves for the sake of fashion or habit, such as indulging in tobacco or excessive alcohol consumption. These vices not only drain financial resources, but also diminish physical and mental capabilities, hindering success. The cost of bad habits. Among the most destructive financial and health habits are tobacco and alcohol consumption. These indulgences, once acquired, become stronger than natural cravings, leading individuals to prioritize them over essential needs. A smoker may forgo nutritious food in favor of cigarettes, while a drinker may squander opportunities for success due to impaired judgment. Social drinking, often seen as harmless, has led many businessmen to make poor financial decisions under its influence. Many squander fortunes, missing critical opportunities while indulging in momentary pleasures. To succeed financially, one must maintain a clear mind and sound judgment, qualities compromised by intoxicating habits. Conclusion. Financial success is not merely about earning money, but managing it wisely. True economy is about strategic financial decisions, not mere penny pinching. By adopting disciplined spending habits, resisting unnecessary indulgences, and prioritizing health, individuals can achieve lasting financial independence. Instead of living to impress others, it is far wiser to build wealth steadily, ensuring security for the future. Through mindful financial management, anyone can turn the art of money-getting into a lifelong success. The right path to success, finding one's true vocation. There is no surer plan for success in life than for a young man to choose a vocation that aligns with his natural inclinations and interests. It is a simple yet often overlooked principle that the most fulfilling and prosperous careers arise when an individual works in harmony with his own talents. Unfortunately, parents and guardians, in their well-meaning but sometimes misguided attempts to guide their children, often neglect this fundamental truth. It is not uncommon for a father to devise a future for his sons based on arbitrary assignments rather than careful observation of their aptitudes. He may say, "I have 5 boys. I will make Billy a clergyman, John a lawyer, Tom a doctor, and Dick a farmer." Then, after a trip to town, he returns home with a decision for the youngest. "Sammy, I have seen that watchmaking is a refined and respectable trade. I shall make you a goldsmith." He declares this without a moment's consideration of Sammy's personal interests, skills, or natural inclinations. Yet, nature has endowed each of us with unique abilities. Just as no 2 faces are exactly alike, no 2 minds are identical in their workings. Some individuals are born with an innate love for mechanics. They are the ones who, even as young boys, are fascinated by locks, gears, and puzzles. Gather a dozen 10-year-old children together, and you will find 2 or 3 eagerly whittling away at pieces of wood, constructing ingenious little devices, or disassembling broken clocks just to see how they work. Even in early childhood, their passion is evident. Give them a toy, and they will prefer a puzzle over anything else. These children are natural mechanics. Others, however, have no such inclination. I count myself among this latter group. I have never possessed an interest in mechanical work. Even as a boy, the mere sight of a complex machine filled me with frustration rather than fascination. I lacked the dexterity to carve a cider tap that wouldn't leak. Writing with a pen I had fashioned myself was an impossibility, and when it came to understanding the principles of a steam engine, I was hopelessly lost. If someone had forced me into an apprenticeship as a watchmaker, I might have eventually acquired the basic skills to take apart and reassemble a watch. Yet my entire career would have felt like an uphill battle. I would have sought every excuse to avoid my work, dreading each moment spent at my bench. This simple truth cannot be ignored. Unless a man pursues the vocation that best suits his natural talents and disposition, he cannot truly succeed. The world is filled with misplaced talent. Consider the learned blacksmith who has mastered numerous languages but spends his days wielding a hammer when he might have excelled as a professor. Likewise, there are lawyers, doctors, and clergymen who would have been far happier and more effective had they taken up blacksmithing, shoemaking, or farming instead. To achieve true success, a man must not only work hard but work in the right field. Therein lies the secret. Find the work that calls to you, the work that excites you rather than wearies you. When one's occupation is in harmony with one's natural abilities, labour ceases to be a burden, it becomes a joy. And in that joy, success is almost certain to follow. The right vocation and the right location. Success in any field is a combination of passion, skill, and circumstances. Finding the right vocation is undoubtedly the first step, but once that is secured, an equally crucial factor emerges, the right location. A master of their craft can still fail if they set up in the wrong place. Location is the stage upon which a career or business performs. Without an audience, even the best performance will go unnoticed. Imagine a man who has all the talent and expertise to be a first-class hotelier. He understands hospitality down to the finest details. How to keep a hotel running like clockwork, how to make every guest feel at home, and how to provide impeccable service to hundreds of people daily. Yet if he builds his grand establishment in a remote village with no railway access and little public travel, his venture will fail. Not because of a lack of skill, but because of a lack of customers. The lesson is clear. Skill alone is not enough. It must be applied in the right place. A tale from London. In 1858, during my travels in London, I had an encounter that perfectly illustrated the importance of location. Walking down Holborn with an English friend, we stumbled upon a collection of penny shows. These were attractions with grand, eye-catching posters promising incredible curiosities, all for the price of a penny. My interest was piqued, being in the show business myself, so I suggested we step inside one of these establishments. Inside, we were greeted by the showman himself, a shrewd and charismatic individual who immediately launched into his pitch. He regaled us with tales of his exhibits, bearded ladies, rare albinos, and exotic armadillos. Some of his claims were so outlandish that we had trouble believing them, yet his confidence was so unwavering that questioning him seemed futile. Then he guided us to a collection of wax statues, which he presented with great enthusiasm. But to our eyes, these statues were anything but impressive. Covered in dust and grime, they looked as if they had not been cleaned since the Great Flood. Curious, I asked, "What makes your wax figures so special?" He straightened up, looking almost offended. "Sir, these are not mere imitations covered in gilt and tinsel like those at Madame Tussauds. Mine are taken directly from life. Each one of these figures is an exact representation of the person it portrays." I glanced at one labelled Henry VIII and was immediately struck by its resemblance to Calvin Edson, the famous living skeleton. Skeptical, I questioned him. "Are you sure this is Henry VIII?" "Absolutely, sir. This figure was taken from life at Hampton Court by special order of the King himself." He spoke with such conviction that one might think he had been present at the event. I raised an eyebrow. "But everyone knows Henry VIII was a large, stout man. This figure is thin and frail. How do you explain that?" Without missing a beat, he replied, "Well, sir, you would be lean and lank too if you had been sitting there as long as he has." There was no arguing with such logic. Turning to my companion, I admitted defeat. Let's go, I concede. This man is the master showman. As we exited, the showman took full advantage of our presence. Addressing the crowd outside, he gestured towards us and called out, "Ladies and gentlemen, I draw your attention to the respectable character of my visitors." A change of scenery, a change of fortune. A few days later, I returned to speak with him. I introduced myself and said, "Sir, you are a gifted showman, but you have chosen the wrong location." He sighed. "I know," he admitted. "I feel like all my talents are wasted here. But what can I do?" "You can go to America," I advised. "There, you'll have room to thrive. The opportunities are boundless and your skills will be appreciated. I will hire you for 2 years at my New York museum. After that, you'll be able to stand on your own." He took my advice and it changed his life. After 2 years in New York, he ventured further, setting up a traveling show business in New Orleans during the summer. Today, he is worth $60,000. Not because he gained new skills, but because he moved to a location where his talents could flourish. The lesson. The wisdom of this story is simple but powerful. Success is not just about what you do, but where you do it. A person with exceptional skills in an oversaturated or poorly situated market will struggle, while someone with modest abilities in the right place can thrive. The old proverb states, 3 removes are as bad as a fire. But when a person is already in a fire, it hardly matters how often they move, as long as they find the right place in the end. Choosing the right vocation is crucial, but finding the right location, that is the final key to lasting success. The Perils of Debt, a young man's journey to financial wisdom. In the bustling town of Fairhaven, where opportunities were ripe for the taking, lived a young man named Thomas. Fresh out of his teenage years, Thomas was eager to make his mark on the world. Like many others his age, he was drawn to the allure of fine clothes, the latest gadgets, and a lifestyle that spoke of success, regardless of whether he had earned it yet. One day, Thomas met his childhood friend Henry, who proudly displayed his new suit. "Look at this," Henry exclaimed. "I got trusted for a brand new outfit. No money down, and I walk out looking like a gentleman." Thomas admired the fine fabric and sharp tailoring. The thought of instant gratification without immediate cost seemed almost magical. Inspired, he followed Henry's example and purchased a suit on credit. At that moment, he felt a sense of pride, as if he had taken a shortcut to success. But what he didn't realize was that he had just stepped onto a slippery slope that many young men fall into. Debt. The invisible chains of debt. The first purchase felt easy, but soon Thomas found himself doing the same with a pair of polished shoes, then a stylish hat, and before he knew it, he was trapped in a cycle of borrowing. The merchants were happy to extend credit, but when the time came to pay, Thomas found himself struggling. The problem with debt is that it robs a man of his peace of mind. It is like a shadow that grows longer with time, eventually covering every aspect of life. Each month, instead of enjoying the fruits of his labor, Thomas found himself working merely to settle past expenses, paying for things already worn, eaten, or used up. The old saying, "working for a dead horse," became his harsh reality. He soon noticed a change in his demeanor. The confidence he once had was replaced with anxiety. He avoided eye contact with his creditors, took longer routes to avoid passing by their shops, and even found himself uttering small falsehoods to delay payment. Debt had not only burdened his wallet, but had also eroded his self-respect. The wisdom of the Quaker. One evening, Thomas met an old Quaker farmer named Elias, known in Fairhaven for his wisdom and prudence. Seeing Thomas's troubled expression, Elias offered some advice. "Young man," he said, "never get trusted, but if thee must, let it be for something that helps thee pay it back. A plot of land, some good tools or livestock, but never for things that disappear with time. Debt is like quicksand. The more thee struggles without a plan, the deeper thee sinks." Thomas pondered these words. He had borrowed not for investment, but for fleeting pleasures. His debt had done nothing to help him grow. Instead, it had shackled him to past choices. The right kind of debt. Now, not all debt is harmful. The renowned preacher Mr. Beecher once advised young men that a small debt for purchasing land could be beneficial. If a young man, he said, gets in debt for some land and then marries, these 2 things will keep him straight, or nothing will. The key difference was purpose. Borrowing to build something that generates wealth, like land or a business, could be a wise decision. But borrowing for fleeting pleasures or unnecessary luxuries was a surefire way to financial ruin. The harsh reality of borrowing. Many families in Fairhaven had developed a habit of buying on credit at local stores. They convinced themselves that a 60-day credit term was harmless. The merchant won't mind if I'm late, they would say. But they failed to understand one undeniable truth. Creditors have the best memories in the world. When the due date arrived, the merchant expected his payment. If it wasn't met, excuses had to be made, promises extended, or worse, more borrowing undertaken to cover the old debt. Thomas saw how this cycle destroyed not only financial stability, but also personal integrity. He recalled the story of Horatio, a lazy apprentice notorious for his sluggishness. When asked if he had ever seen a snail, he slowly responded, "I think I have." His employer laughed. "You must have met him then, for I am sure you never overtook one." Debt, like the relentless snail, will always catch up. And when it does, it brings interest, a silent thief that takes more from you while you sleep. A creditor's money placed at interest grows overnight. Meanwhile, the debtor loses wealth even in his rest, as unpaid interest compounds against him. Money, master or servant. Money, in its essence, is like fire, an excellent servant, but a terrible master. If a man controls his money, he commands a powerful ally that works for him day and night. But if money controls him, it becomes a ruthless oppressor, chaining him to endless toil. In the Puritan town of Hartford, the elders were known for their strict laws. It was said that they even fined men for kissing their wives on Sundays. Yet these same men had thousands of dollars placed at interest, making them wealthier each day, even on Sundays when they were supposed to rest. Their money worked for them, rather than against them. The Philosopher's Stone of Finance. One day, Thomas stumbled upon a powerful quote from the great Virginian John Randolph, who once declared in Congress, "Mr. Speaker, I have discovered the Philosopher's Stone. Pay as you go." Thomas took this lesson to heart. He decided to break free from debt, discipline his spending, and work towards ownership rather than owing. It wasn't an easy journey, but it was the only path to true financial freedom. Years later, he stood on his own plot of land, debt-free and full of self-respect. He had learned one of life's most valuable lessons: to live within his means, to let money work for him, and never to let the chains of debt shackle his future. The wisdom he gained he shared with others, ensuring that young men in Fairhaven knew the truth, that the road to prosperity was not through borrowed indulgence, but through earned wealth and wise stewardship. Moral of the story: debt may promise comfort today, but it demands payment tomorrow, with interest. A man who pays as he goes walks with confidence, but a man burdened by debt walks in chains. Choose wisely, and let your money serve you, not enslave you. The Power of Perseverance, a story and a lesson. In the grand tapestry of life, there exists a truth as old as time itself. When a man finds himself on the right path, he must persevere. The road to success is seldom smooth, and challenges will arise to test his resolve. Yet it is in these very moments that character is forged and destiny is shaped. There are some, unfortunately, who seem to be born tired, naturally inclined toward laziness, lacking self-reliance and possessing no perseverance. These individuals often drift through life, waiting for fortune to favor them rather than taking the initiative to create their own fate. But here lies the great secret. Perseverance, determination, and self-reliance are not merely traits one is born with. They are qualities that can be cultivated, honed, and strengthened like muscles through deliberate effort and steadfast resolve. The great frontiersman Davy Crockett once said, "This thing remember, when I am dead, be sure you are right, then go ahead." This philosophy encapsulates the essence of true perseverance. It is not enough to simply dream or plan. One must act with conviction. Many have stood on the precipice of greatness, only to falter because they lost faith in themselves. The golden prize was within reach, but hesitation, doubt, or weariness caused them to let go. How tragic it is when ambition falls victim to fear. Shakespeare captured this idea eloquently. There is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune. Opportunities come, but they do not linger. Those who hesitate may find themselves outpaced by bolder, more resolute individuals who seize the moment without fear. The wisdom of Solomon reminds us, "He becometh poor that dealeth with a slack hand, but the hand of the diligent maketh rich." The difference between failure and success. Perseverance is often but another word for self-reliance. There are those who perpetually look at the dark side of life, who borrow trouble from the future, and who allow their doubts to dictate their actions. These individuals rely too much on the opinions of others, blown like leaves in the wind, unable to stand firm in their own beliefs. Until one learns to trust in themselves and their own judgment, true success remains elusive. Consider the stories of two men who face financial ruin. One, overwhelmed by despair, sees no path forward and chooses to end his own life, believing his failure to be final. The other, though facing even greater hardship, refuses to surrender. With unwavering faith in his ability to overcome, he persists, taking each setback as a lesson and each failure as a stepping stone. His perseverance, guided by an unshakable belief in justice and the providence of good, ultimately leads him to triumph. This same principle applies in every arena of life. Take, for instance, two generals, both trained in the art of war, both possessing intelligence and skill. Yet, when the moment of battle arrives, their choices diverge. One, upon hearing that the enemy approaches with powerful cannons, hesitates. He pauses, second-guesses, and in that moment of indecision, the enemy advances unchallenged, gaining the upper hand. The other general, however, possesses the spirit of perseverance. He does not waver in the face of adversity. Amidst the thunder of cannon fire, the cries of the wounded, and the chaos of battle, he presses forward with unwavering determination. His confidence inspires his soldiers, turning fear into fortitude, hesitation into heroism. Victory belongs to him, not because he was the more skilled, but because he was the more resolute. Cultivating perseverance. To those who lack perseverance, the message is clear: cultivate it. Develop the habit of seeing obstacles as challenges rather than barriers. Train yourself to persist in the face of difficulty, to push forward even when the odds seem insurmountable. Do not allow momentary failures to define you. Instead, let them refine you, shaping you into a person of strength, wisdom, and relentless determination. The path to success is not for the faint-hearted. It belongs to those who dare to persist, to those who trust in themselves and refuse to be swayed by doubt. When you are on the right path, move forward with courage. Be sure you are right. Then go ahead. The relentless pursuit of success, a lesson in diligence. Success is not a matter of chance. It is the fruit of relentless effort and unwavering dedication. The truly successful individual understands that work is not bound by the constraints of time or season. It is an all-encompassing pursuit. If necessary, one must rise early and toil late, ensuring that no stone remains unturned in the quest for excellence. Procrastination is the silent thief of opportunity, and the wise person seizes the moment, never deferring for a single hour what can be accomplished immediately. An old proverb imparts a truth that stands the test of time: whatever is worth doing at all is worth doing well. It is this philosophy that distinguishes those who build fortunes from those who falter in mediocrity. A diligent man, committed to thoroughness in his work, carves out prosperity, while his neighbour, who operates with only half-hearted effort, remains ensnared in perpetual struggle. Success demands ambition, energy, industry, and perseverance, qualities that form the bedrock of any meaningful endeavour. The folly of idleness. Fortune, it is said, favours the brave, but it never extends its hand to those who refuse to help themselves. To wait idly, hoping for circumstances to improve on their own, is folly. Consider the character of Mr. Micawber from Dickens's David Copperfield, forever waiting for something to turn up. Such an approach leads only to despair. The idle man, avoiding the rigour of work, finds himself either in rags or, worse, in ruin. As the saying goes, idleness is the mother of misfortune. There are those who, in their ignorance, imagine that wealth should be equally divided among all people, believing that such a system would bring universal happiness. Yet, when confronted with reality, their folly is exposed. A rich man once replied to a pauper's demand for equal wealth, "If we were to divide everything equally today, in 2 months the wealth would be gone, squandered by those who do not know its value. And what then? The pauper, unshaken in his misguided ideology, answered, "Oh, divide again. Keep dividing, of course." Such thinking ignores the fundamental truth that wealth is not simply about possession, it is about creation, management, and growth. Money without discipline is like water in the hands of the careless. It slips away faster than it can be replenished. The necessity of action. There is no shortage of grand ideas in the world, but ideas alone accomplish nothing. I once read of a pauper in London who was ejected from a boarding house for failing to pay his bill. Despite his destitution, he carried with him a bundle of papers containing an elaborate plan to pay off the national debt of England, without the use of a single penny. His scheme, no doubt, was as impractical as it was ambitious. He failed to grasp that solutions require action, not just thought. Oliver Cromwell, the great English statesman, understood this principle well. He famously advised his soldiers, "Trust in Providence, but keep your powder dry." This was not merely a military strategy, but a philosophy of life. Trust in fate, but ensure that you have done everything in your power to secure success. It is folly to rely solely on divine intervention without taking necessary action. The wisdom of Mahomet echoes this sentiment. One night, while traveling through the desert, the prophet overheard a weary follower say, "I will loose my camel and trust it to God." Mahomet, recognizing the danger in such blind faith, immediately corrected him, No, not so. Tie thy camel and trust it to God." The final lesson. The road to success is paved with effort, discipline, and perseverance. One must act, work, and strive with all their might, trusting that fortune will favor those who have prepared themselves. Do all you can for yourself, and then and only then trust in providence, fate, or luck for the rest. For in the grand scheme of life, it is not mere wishes that shape destiny, but the unwavering commitment to hard work and the relentless pursuit of excellence. The eye of the employer, the path to mastery and success. In the grand theatre of business, the watchful eye of an employer often holds more value than the hands of a dozen employees. This is not to diminish the importance of workers, but rather to highlight the irreplaceable role of a leader who intimately understands their trade. It is a simple truth of human nature that an agent, no matter how loyal, cannot exhibit the same level of devotion to another's business as he would to his own. Employers across industries can recall instances where even their best employees have overlooked critical details that would have been obvious to them as proprietors. Success in business does not come as a gift. It must be earned through understanding and mastery. No person has the right to expect prosperity unless they truly comprehend their work, and no one can fully understand their business without personal application and experience. A manufacturer may employ the best engineers and operators, but if he does not personally acquaint himself with the intricate details of production, he risks losing control over quality and efficiency. Every day is an opportunity to learn, and with learning comes the inevitability of mistakes. However, those very mistakes, if acknowledged and corrected, serve as invaluable lessons. A fitting story illustrates this point. A Yankee tin peddler once bought a batch of merchandise, only to later realize he had been deceived regarding its quality. Instead of lamenting his loss, he shrugged and said, "All right, there's a little information to be gained every day. I will never be cheated in that way again." This is the essence of wisdom, buying one's experience at a fair price and ensuring that past mistakes do not repeat. Consider, too, the case of the French naturalist Georges Cuvier. His mastery of natural history was so thorough that he could deduce the full form of an animal from a mere fragment of bone. His students, eager to test him, once wrapped one of their own in a cowhide and placed him under Cuvier's desk as a supposed new specimen. Upon entering the room, Cuvier was asked to classify the mysterious creature. Suddenly, the hidden student growled, "I am the devil, and I am going to eat you." Cuvier, unfazed, examined the form and coolly replied, "Divided hoof, graminivorous, it cannot be done." His response revealed his unshakable knowledge. An animal with a split hoof feeds on grass and grain, not meat. The lesson here is profound. Mastery of one's domain provides clarity and confidence, ensuring that even in unexpected circumstances, one remains composed and decisive. This brings us to a paradoxical yet insightful maxim of the elder Rothschild: be cautious and bold. At first glance, these words seem contradictory, but within them lies a key principle of success. Caution is necessary in laying one's plans, ensuring every detail is carefully considered. But once a course of action is determined, one must proceed with boldness. A man who is all caution will hesitate endlessly, never daring to act. Conversely, a man who is all boldness and no caution is reckless, doomed to failure. True success requires the delicate balance of both qualities. Another lesson from the Rothschilds advises, never have anything to do with an unlucky man or place. This is not to imply belief in superstition, but rather to recognize patterns of failure. If a man consistently fails in every endeavor, there is likely an underlying weakness, be it poor judgment, a lack of discipline, or an inability to adapt. Even if the flaw is not immediately visible, its effects are undeniable. Likewise, a business location plagued by failure may carry unseen disadvantages, whether in clientele, infrastructure, or economics. To align oneself with chronic failure is to invite misfortune. Finally, the notion of luck deserves scrutiny. Many dream of stumbling upon riches, of finding a purse of gold on the street today and another tomorrow. But such fortune is not sustainable. A man may encounter good fortune once by chance, but if he does not possess the discipline and knowledge to manage it, he will lose it just as easily. Like causes produce like effects. Those who employ the right principles, diligence, education, and strategic risk-taking will find success. If a man fails, there is always a reason, though he may not yet perceive it. In business, as in life, mastery is the ultimate key to success. The employer's eye sees what a dozen hands might overlook. Experience is the best teacher, and bold yet calculated action leads to triumph. One must be ever vigilant, ever learning, and ever striving for excellence. For in the end, success is not a matter of luck, but of unwavering competence and determination. The master craftsman and his workshop. In a bustling town known for its thriving businesses, there was a wise old master craftsman named Henry. His workshop was renowned for producing the finest wooden furniture, each piece crafted with care and precision. Customers from all over the region sought his work, for they knew that anything bearing his mark was of the highest quality. Henry had spent decades perfecting his trade, but he knew one truth above all. A craftsman was only as good as his tools, and the most important tools in any business were not chisels or saws, they were people. One day a young apprentice named Thomas approached Henry and asked, "Master, how do you build such a successful workshop?" Henry smiled and gestured toward his workers, each one deeply focused on their craft. "The secret," he said, "is not just in selecting the best wood, but in selecting the best hands to work it." Thomas furrowed his brow. "But aren't all workers the same?" Henry chuckled. "Ah, my boy, let me tell you a story. The tale of 3 workers. Years ago, I needed new hands in my workshop. 3 men came seeking employment. The first man was strong and eager. "I have 2 hands and I can follow instructions well," he said. I hired him, but soon I noticed that he did only what he was told. Never more, never less. The second man was stronger still. "I can use my hands and I think with my fingers," he said, meaning he had a bit of initiative. He was better than the first, but still limited. Then came the third man. "Master," he said, "I do not just use my hands. I think with my head. I observe, learn, and improve. I will not only do as you ask, but I will find ways to make the work better." That was the man I truly wanted. Thomas nodded slowly, beginning to understand. "So you chose the man with the thinking hands?" "Yes," Henry said, "but more importantly, I chose the man with a thinking mind. Hands alone cannot build a masterpiece, but a sharp mind can shape both the wood and the future." The value of retaining good workers, Henry continued, "but hiring good men is only the beginning. The real wisdom lies in keeping them. A skilled worker becomes more valuable each year, learning new techniques and refining his craft. Why would I replace him with a new, inexperienced hand?" Thomas pondered this. But what if the worker, knowing his worth, demands too much in return? Henry's expression darkened slightly. "Ah, that is where wisdom must guide you. If a man grows greedy and believes the workshop cannot function without him, he becomes a danger. No one should ever believe they are irreplaceable, for arrogance is the death of growth. If a worker demands an unreasonable wage, assuming I cannot continue without him, I must let him go. I once had such a man in my workshop. He was skilled, but one day he came to me and said, "Master, you cannot afford to lose me. I demand double my wages." I let him go that very moment, not out of spite, but to teach him and others that no one is beyond replacement. His talent was great, but his pride made him useless to me. Thomas nodded thoughtfully. "So you reward loyalty and skill, but not arrogance?" "Exactly," Henry replied. "A wise employer recognizes the value of experience and rewards it fairly. A foolish one replaces good men too easily, while a weak one lets greed control him. The key is balance." The final lesson. Years later, when Thomas became a master craftsman himself, he followed Henry's teachings. He hired not just hands but minds, retained his best workers, and never allowed arrogance to take root. His workshop flourished, just as Henry's had, and he often repeated the lesson to his own apprentices. A business grows not by the number of hands it employs, but by the number of minds it nurtures. And so the wisdom of the master craftsman lived on, shaping generations of workers and leaders alike. The path to true success, a lesson for young men. In the bustling city streets and the quiet country towns alike, a common tale unfolds. Young men, fresh from their business training or apprenticeship, often find themselves at a crossroads. Instead of diving into their chosen careers with energy and enthusiasm, they linger, idling their time away. "I have learned my trade," they say, "but I refuse to be just a hireling. What is the point of learning my profession unless I establish myself?" "Do you have the capital to start?" a mentor may ask. "No, but I will have it soon." "How will you get it?" A sly smile appears. "Confidentially, I have a wealthy aunt who is quite old. She may pass soon and I will inherit a fortune. If not, I'll find a rich benefactor who will lend me a few $1,000s to set me up. Once I get the money, I'll do well." But here lies a grave mistake, a mistake that has led many into disappointment and ruin. The notion that success comes easily with borrowed money is a dangerous illusion. The wisdom of John Jacob Astor stands as a testimony to this truth. "It was more difficult for me to accumulate my first $1,000 than all the millions that followed." Money, when unearned, is easily squandered. Hand a young man $20,000 and the likelihood is high that he will lose it all within a year. It is the same as winning a lottery, easy come, easy go. Without effort, there is no appreciation. Without struggle, there is no wisdom. True wealth is not merely the accumulation of money, but the understanding of its value, the discipline of patience, and the perseverance to multiply it. Young men must abandon the fruitless wait for dead men's shoes. Those who rely on inheritance or charity often find themselves waiting endlessly, for there is no class of people more reluctant to die than the rich elderly. It is fortunate for them, and often disastrous for their hopeful heirs. The most successful men in history did not wait for fortune to fall into their laps. They built their own destinies. Stephen Girard started as a poor cabin boy and amassed $9 million. A.T. Stewart arrived in America as a poor Irish boy and eventually earned an income exceeding $1.5 million annually. John Jacob Astor began as a struggling farmer's son and left behind $20 million. Cornelius Vanderbilt started with nothing more than a small ferry and died leaving a $50 million empire. The road to wealth and wisdom. It is said there is no royal road to learning, and the same applies to wealth. Yet, in truth, both learning and wealth do have a royal road, the path of discipline, persistence, and wisdom. A dedicated scholar, through steady accumulation of knowledge, can eventually master the mysteries of the universe. Likewise, the determined businessman, by careful study of human nature and diligent practice, can steadily amass wealth and achieve financial independence. The pattern repeats itself across generations. The self-made man, through perseverance and thrift, accumulates great wealth. His children, raised in luxury, fail to grasp the true value of money. They are pampered and spoiled, led to believe that riches are their birthright. At school, they flaunt their wealth, showering friends with feasts and gifts. At college, they squander their inheritance in extravagance and recklessness. They believe money exists to be spent freely, and they despise the virtues of hard work and thrift that built their family's fortune. Soon, the fortune is lost, and they are left destitute. Meanwhile, another generation of poor but ambitious young men rises, learns from hardship, and builds wealth once again. And so, history repeats itself. Those who heed the lessons of the past can avoid the tragic cycle of gain and loss. The American spirit, a nation of opportunity. Unlike England, where a person's profession dictates their social status, America holds a different principle. Here, the man makes the business, not the other way around. Whether a man is a blacksmith, a shoemaker, a merchant, or a lawyer, his industry, integrity, and intelligence define him. Honest labor is noble, and every profession contributes to society's greater good. The farmer feeds the nation, the tailor clothes it, the doctor heals it, and the teacher enlightens it. Each occupation has its dignity and importance. What matters is not merely the profession, but the excellence within it. The secret to true success is simple. Be the best in your field. When a young man once asked a wise old lawyer, "Is your profession overcrowded?" the lawyer wisely replied, "The basement is crowded, but there's plenty of room upstairs." No trade, business, or profession is too full for those who strive for excellence. The world always makes space for those who master their craft. Whether one is a merchant, a banker, a doctor, or a carpenter, the one who surpasses all others in skill, reliability, and integrity will always have abundant work and wealth. In modern times, too many are obsessed with quick riches, sacrificing quality for speed. Yet true and lasting success belongs to those who build diligently, who focus on substance rather than shortcuts. Wealth is not an accident, but a consequence of knowledge, perseverance, and integrity. Let the motto be Excelsior, ever upward. For those who embrace this principle, failure is not an option. Their future is bright, their wealth secure, and their legacy enduring. The legacy of skill, a father's greatest gift. On a crisp autumn morning, old Mr. Harding sat on the wooden bench outside his small workshop, watching the golden leaves dance in the wind. His son William, a young man of 20, stood beside him, gazing at the bustling town square where merchants, craftsmen, and traders went about their business. "Father," William asked, "why did you insist that I learn carpentry, even though we come from a family of merchants? Would it not have been better for me to study trade and commerce alone?" Mr. Harding chuckled, his weathered hands brushing against the wood shavings on his apron. "Let me tell you a story, my son," he said, his deep voice carrying the wisdom of years. "There was once a wealthy man in this very town, Mr. Ellsworth. He owned ships, warehouses, and a grand estate that many envied. His children grew up with everything they could ever wish for, fine clothes, tutors, and servants at their beck and call. But despite all his wealth, Mr. Ellsworth made one grave mistake. He never taught his children a trade. He believed riches would always remain within their grasp. But fortune, my son, is a fickle thing. A series of bad investments, a failed sea voyage, and a fire at one of his warehouses reduced Mr. Ellsworth's fortune to nothing. His lands were sold, his ships taken, and his family was left with no means of survival. His children, accustomed only to luxury, found themselves helpless. They knew not how to work with their hands, nor how to earn an honest living. One by one, they fell into hardship, relying on the charity of others, struggling to find their place in a world that no longer recognized them as privileged. William's brow furrowed. "That is a sad tale indeed. But what became of them? Some never recovered." "Mr. Harding said solemnly, "The daughters found work as governesses, while the sons, unfamiliar with any trade, were forced to take menial jobs. They lived far beneath the station in which they were raised, always lamenting what they had lost rather than rebuilding from what remained." He turned to his son and placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Now, take another man, Mr. Turner, the blacksmith. He was never wealthy, but he was wise. He taught his sons the art of metalwork and his daughters the skill of tailoring and embroidery. When hard times came and he lost his shop due to a change in market demand, his children were not helpless. His sons opened their own smithy in a nearby town, and his daughters made a living selling fine garments. They never went hungry, nor did they have to beg for another man's kindness." William nodded slowly, understanding the lesson hidden within his father's words. "To give a child wealth without skill is like giving a ship a grand sail but no rudder," Mr. Harding continued. It may look splendid, but when storms come, it will surely be lost. But if you give your child a trade, a skill that no man can take from him, then no matter what misfortune befalls him, he will always have something to rebuild his life upon. From that day on, William worked harder at his craft, realizing that his father's insistence on carpentry was not about denying him the comfort of wealth, but about ensuring his ability to stand strong, even if wealth was taken away. And so, through generations, the Harding family carried this wisdom forward, each father ensuring that his sons and daughters knew not only the ways of commerce, but also the value of skill. They never feared changing fortunes, for they possessed the greatest security of all, the knowledge of how to work with their own hands and minds. Lesson to take away. Life is uncertain, and fortunes can rise and fall like the tides. To secure a child's future, a father should ensure that they learn a trade or profession, something they can rely upon in times of hardship. Money can be lost, but skill remains, serving as a lifelong anchor in the stormy seas of fate. The peril of endless chasing, a lesson in patience and prudence. In a small, bustling town, there lived a man named Samuel. He was known for his grand ideas, always speaking of the next great venture that would make him rich beyond measure. One day he was certain that a new type of spice trade would bring him fortune, and he borrowed money to invest in it. Before his spice business could even take root, he heard of a new opportunity in textiles and immediately sold his spices at a loss to fund his latest ambition. Not long after, a friend spoke to him about a booming trade in rare birds, and once again Samuel abandoned his work to chase yet another dream. His neighbours often saw him pacing back and forth, muttering about how wealthy he would soon be. "This time, it is a sure success," he would declare. Yet, time and again, his ventures crumbled before they could bear fruit. His wife and children lived in constant uncertainty, their home filled with half-finished projects and unpaid debts. While others in the town built steady, modest fortunes through patience and persistence, Samuel remained caught in an endless cycle of enthusiasm and failure. One evening, an old farmer watched Samuel lament his latest misfortune. The farmer, wise with years of experience, smiled and said, "My friend, do you know why my barn is full of grain and yours remains empty? It is because I plant my seeds in one field, tend to them, and wait for the harvest. You, on the other hand, keep running from one plot to another, always digging but never growing anything to reap." Samuel frowned, but the words struck deep. He had spent his life counting his chickens before they were hatched, imagining wealth without first laying a foundation for it. The wisdom was old, ancient even, but it remained true through the ages. Success does not come from restless chasing, but from dedication, patience, and the willingness to see a single effort through to completion. Many people remain poor not because they lack intelligence or opportunity, but because they are too visionary in the wrong way. They mistake enthusiasm for certainty, leaping from one idea to the next without ever allowing a single effort to mature. A wise man understands that while ambition is important, it must be accompanied by focus, discipline, and the patience to see things through. As for Samuel, he took the farmer's lesson to heart. He chose one business, worked diligently at it, and in time his fortune grew, not overnight but steadily, surely, and wisely. The power of singular focus, a lesson in business success. James Thornton was a man of ambition. From a young age, he had an insatiable hunger for success. His mind brimmed with ideas, each one seeming as promising as the next. One day, he decided to start a small trading business, dealing in fabrics. The business showed promise, and he worked diligently. However, before long, he was lured by the excitement of another venture, a restaurant. Convinced he could handle both, he split his time between the two. As weeks turned to months, James found himself stretched thin. Managing suppliers for his fabrics while also overseeing the restaurant's operations became overwhelming. He struggled to give his full attention to either business, and before long, both began to suffer. Orders were delayed, customers became dissatisfied, and financial losses began to mount. Eventually, unable to sustain the weight of divided focus, he was forced to close both businesses. One evening, disheartened but wiser, James confided in his grandfather, an experienced businessman. The old man listened patiently and then shared a story of his own. "When I was a young man, I had a simple goal: to become the finest blacksmith in town. I worked tirelessly, focusing on my craft, hammering nails, forging tools, and improving my skills every day. One nail at a time, one strike at a time. I never let my mind wander to anything else. And do you know what happened? I became the best. People came from miles around for my work because they knew I was dedicated to my craft. Had I tried my hand at farming, trading, or a dozen other things at once, I would have been mediocre at all and excellent at none." James reflected on his grandfather's words. He realized his failure was not due to bad luck, but to his lack of singular focus. The next day, he resolved to start again, this time dedicating himself entirely to a single business. He reopened his fabric shop and poured all his energy into perfecting it. He studied his customers' needs, improved his supply chain, and refined his marketing strategies. Over time, the business flourished, growing into a well-respected brand. The lesson is clear: engaging in too many ventures at once can lead to divided attention and failure. Success in business requires deep focus, persistence, and continuous improvement in a single domain. When you direct all your energy towards one pursuit, your mind sharpens, insights emerge, and you become an expert in your field. A constant hammering on one nail will eventually drive it home, allowing it to be clinched firmly. So, whether you are starting a business or pursuing a career, choose your path wisely, stay committed, and let your dedication be the force that propels you to success. Remember, too many irons in the fire can lead to none being properly forged. The power of system in business. In the world of business, success often hinges on one fundamental principle: system. A man who operates systematically, who follows a structured approach, maintains a time and place for everything, and executes his tasks with precision, will achieve twice as much with half the effort compared to one who works carelessly and haphazardly. Imagine two merchants setting out to build their trade. One wakes at the same hour each morning, reviews his agenda, attends to his customers promptly, and ensures every transaction is meticulously recorded. He meets his appointments with punctuality, finishes one task before starting another, and follows through with every commitment. Because he maintains this discipline, he finds time in the evenings to enjoy leisure with his family, to read, or to engage in personal development. The other merchant, however, is disorganized. He begins one task but abandons it midway to attend to another. His records are scattered, his appointments frequently missed, and his workday never truly ends because unfinished business constantly piles up. He is in a perpetual state of catch-up, his mind clouded with uncertainty and stress. While the systematic businessman rests, he remains entangled in unfinished work, never quite knowing when his day is done, for in truth, it never is. The lesson is clear. By implementing a system into daily operations, business owners can create efficiency, minimize unnecessary stress, and ultimately succeed where others falter. A cautionary tale: the limits of system. Yet, as with all virtues, there is a limit to systematization. A person can become so rigid in their organization that it turns counterproductive. There are individuals who store things so carefully that they can never find them again. Bureaucracies, notorious for their over-reliance on red tape, often become paralyzed by their own procedures. Charles Dickens humorously critiqued this in his portrayal of the Circumlocution Office, where everything was dictated by formalities, yet nothing was ever truly accomplished. A classic example of both the benefits and pitfalls of systematization can be seen in the early days of the famous Astor House Hotel in New York City. When it first opened, it was regarded as the finest hotel in the country. The proprietors had studied European hospitality and prided themselves on the meticulous system governing every aspect of their establishment. One evening, as the clock struck midnight, a proprietor instructed his staff to demonstrate their fire preparedness. A bell rang, and within 2 minutes, 60 servants appeared in the hall, each holding 2 water buckets. Turning to his guests, the landlord declared, "This is our fire drill. You see, here at Astor House, we do everything systematically." This was before the introduction of the Croton water system, and such preparedness reassured visitors of their safety. However, on another occasion, this devotion to system went too far. One afternoon, just before dinner service, a waiter fell ill. Although there were 50 other waiters on staff, the landlord insisted that every station must be manned. Frantically searching for a replacement, he spotted Pat, the Irish boot cleaner. "Pat," the landlord commanded, "wash your hands, put on a white apron, and be in the dining room in 5 minutes." Pat, always eager, agreed. Soon he stood behind a set of chairs, ready to serve. The landlord gave him clear instructions. When the guests arrive, serve them soup first. Once they finish, ask what they would like next. "Ah, sure, I understand the virtues of system," Pat replied confidently. As the guests arrived, he dutifully placed soup before them. One gentleman ate his soup, while the other, uninterested, pushed his bowl aside and requested fish. Pat, recalling the landlord's emphasis on following the system, looked at the untouched soup and firmly replied, "Not till ye have ate your soup." The rigidity of system had reached an absurd extreme. The key: balance and adaptability. The story of Pat at the Astor House serves as a reminder that while a systematic approach fosters efficiency and organization, an overzealous reliance on structure can lead to unnecessary rigidity. True mastery lies in balancing discipline with flexibility, ensuring that organization serves its purpose without becoming a hindrance. For entrepreneurs and business professionals, the lesson is twofold. Embrace a structured approach to enhance productivity, but always leave room for adaptability. A well-run enterprise is like a well-tuned instrument, orderly and harmonious, yet responsive to the nuances of the moment. In this balance lies the secret to sustainable success. The value of a trustworthy newspaper. One crisp autumn morning, Mr. Henry Caldwell, a respected merchant in the bustling town of Fairhaven, sat in his study with a steaming cup of coffee and the latest edition of the Fairhaven Gazette. His daily ritual of reading the newspaper was something he had cultivated for years, and he credited much of his success to staying informed. That morning, an article caught his attention, news of a groundbreaking steam-powered loom that promised to revolutionize the textile industry. Henry, a man of foresight, immediately realized the impact this invention could have on his business. He made arrangements to visit the nearest manufacturer and secure an early order before his competitors even heard of it. Later that week, he met with his friend and fellow businessman, Mr. Wilkins, who ran a fabric store. Over tea, Henry excitedly shared his plans. "You ought to keep up with the news, Wilkins," Henry advised. "This new loom will change everything. Those who embrace it early will thrive, and those who ignore it may soon find themselves struggling." Wilkins sighed and waved a dismissive hand. "Ah, Henry, I've never been one for newspapers. Too much bad news, too many politics. I prefer to focus on my work and let the world take care of itself." Henry simply nodded, knowing time would prove his point. Months passed, and as expected, the new loom transformed the industry. Henry, having acted early, secured a steady supply of the highest quality fabric at a fraction of the previous cost. His store flourished, drawing in customers eager for fine, affordable materials. Wilkins, on the other hand, found himself unable to compete. By the time he realized the shift, it was too late. His prices were too high, and his inventory outdated. Business dwindled, and before long he was forced to close his shop. One evening, as Henry walked past the shuttered storefront, he couldn't help but reflect. He who neglects the news is like a sailor without a map, adrift in a world that moves too fast to wait for him. The lesson. In the age of telegraphs and steam, of rapid communication and constant innovation, knowledge is the fuel that drives success. A trustworthy newspaper is more than a collection of stories. It is a window to the world, a guide through the ever-changing landscape of business, technology, and opportunity. To be without a newspaper is to be cut off from the very pulse of society. It is to live in a state of ignorance while the world advances, leaving the uninformed behind. Many great inventions, policies, and market trends shape industries overnight, and those who fail to consult the news risk finding themselves obsolete. Just as Henry prospered by staying informed and adapting, and just as Wilkins faltered by ignoring the changing times, so too must we recognize the power of knowledge. To neglect the news is to neglect progress itself. So, always take a reliable newspaper, read it diligently, and keep yourself thoroughly posted on the transactions of the world. For in knowledge lies the key to survival, success, and lasting prosperity. The Perils of Unfamiliar Ventures, a Story of Fortune and Folly. There was once a prosperous merchant named Jonathan Whitmore, who had built his wealth through years of diligence, frugality, and an unwavering dedication to his trade. He had started from humble beginnings, selling fabrics in a small shop on the bustling streets of the city. Through careful investments, an acute understanding of market trends, and a relentless work ethic, Jonathan saw his fortune grow steadily. One evening, while attending a grand banquet, he found himself surrounded by admirers who spoke lavishly of his financial acumen. "Everything you touch turns to gold, Jonathan," one of his acquaintances exclaimed. "You have the Midas touch," added another. He listened, at first amused, then flattered, and finally convinced that he was indeed blessed with an extraordinary ability to generate wealth. It was during this time that an associate approached him with an enticing proposition. "Jonathan, there is a new land development project on the western frontier. Investors are making tenfold returns. All you need is $20,000 to get in, and you could triple your investment within the year." Jonathan hesitated. He had always believed in steady, calculated risks, and only invested in businesses he thoroughly understood. But emboldened by his recent success and the constant praise from his peers, he decided to take the plunge. "I have been lucky so far. Surely my good fortune will continue," he thought. Days passed, and his associate returned with an urgent request. "Jonathan, we underestimated the initial costs. Another $10,000 is needed, but I assure you this will secure our position and yield even greater profits." Jonathan, still confident in his Midas touch, obliged without much thought. Then, not long after, another request came. "Jonathan, unforeseen circumstances have arisen. We need $20,000 more. This is the final stretch before the windfall." With each additional investment, Jonathan found himself further entangled. His legitimate business, the foundation of his wealth, suffered from neglect. Instead of managing his trade, he was consumed by the speculative venture. He reassured himself that he was on the brink of a great triumph, until the day the inevitable happened. The grand scheme collapsed. The land development turned out to be an ill-fated speculation, riddled with deceit and unforeseen setbacks. The surefire profits never materialized. The partners vanished, the investments were lost, and Jonathan found himself stripped of everything he had painstakingly built over the years. It was only then that he realized his folly. The very qualities that had led to his success, his prudence, diligence, and deep knowledge of his own industry, had been cast aside in favor of reckless speculation. He had mistaken luck for wisdom and allowed flattery to blind him to the truth. No matter how successful one may be in their own field, venturing into unknown territories without expertise is as dangerous as Samson shorn of his locks, his strength gone, his power diminished. The lesson to be learned. Jonathan's story serves as a cautionary tale. There is nothing wrong with seeking new opportunities, but one must never gamble away hard-earned wealth on ventures they do not fully understand. If a man has abundant resources, he may allocate small sums toward promising innovations, particularly those that benefit mankind. However, he must always ensure that such investments are measured and never place his fortune at risk for the allure of quick riches. A wise man invests not with blind optimism, but with informed judgment, remembering always that steady, disciplined effort is the surest path to lasting success. The Perils of Endorsing Without Security, a Cautionary Tale. In the realm of financial dealings, there exists a fundamental principle that ought never to be overlooked. No man should endorse a note or become security for another beyond what he can afford to lose without regret, unless he secures adequate collateral. This lesson, often learned too late, serves as a warning to those who would risk their financial stability for the sake of goodwill. Consider the story of a retired gentleman of means who had diligently accumulated his wealth over many years and now lived comfortably on his earnings. One day, an acquaintance, a thriving businessman with assets totaling $20,000 and no outstanding debts, approaches him with an enticing proposition. "My friend," says the businessman, "I am in an excellent financial position. As you well know, If I could secure a loan of $5,000, I could purchase a particular lot of goods and, within 2 months, double my money. Would you be willing to endorse my note for this amount? The retired gentleman, reflecting upon his friend's apparent financial stability, sees little risk in offering his signature. He wishes to oblige a friend, and so, without securing any collateral, he affixes his name to the note. True to his word, the businessman later returns, showing that the note has been successfully cancelled, and even shares that he profited handsomely from the transaction. The gentleman, feeling satisfied with his generosity, thinks he has done a noble deed. Some time passes, and the businessman returns with a similar request. Remembering the previous success, the gentleman readily agrees, once again endorsing the note without hesitation. By now, he has formed a habit, convinced that his friend's financial strength is unwavering. He believes there is no harm in assisting a reputable man. However, an unforeseen danger lurks beneath this seemingly harmless arrangement. The businessman, having found a convenient and effortless means of acquiring funds, begins to lean on it more frequently. He no longer endures the struggle and diligence necessary to secure capital on his own. Instead, he simply presents a note, receives a signature, and walks away with the bank's money. With such easy access to funds, his discipline begins to wane. One day he spots an opportunity outside his regular trade, a speculative venture promising high returns with minimal risk. The investment requires $10,000, a sum he believes will return in ample time before any obligations become due. He approaches his benefactor once more. "It's just a temporary investment," he assures him. "The profits are certain. I only need your signature." By now, the retired gentleman signs almost mechanically, trusting in the businessman's past successes. But fate is fickle. This venture does not yield the anticipated gains. To cover the outstanding note, another must be drawn, and then another. The losses pile up, unseen and unspoken. The businessman, now ensnared in a cycle of reckless speculation, tells himself that just one more deal will recoup his losses. He continues to seek endorsement after endorsement, and his benefactor, unaware of the deepening pit, obliges each time. At last, the inevitable collapse arrives. The businessman, once worth $20,000, finds himself destitute. Worse yet, he has not merely lost his own wealth, he has also squandered the fortune of the man who trusted him. Only when ruin is absolute does the reality become clear. The retired gentleman, overwhelmed with grief and astonishment, laments, "My friend has ruined me." But upon deeper reflection, he must admit the painful truth. I have also ruined him. Had the retired gentleman insisted from the outset, "I will accommodate you, but I never endorse a note without proper security," he would have set a boundary. His friend could not have exceeded his financial limits, nor would he have been lured away from his legitimate business into reckless speculation. The ease of access to money proved too great a temptation, leading to ruin for both parties. This story serves as a grave warning. When people gain access to money too easily, they often fall prey to hazardous risks. The great King Solomon wisely proclaimed, "He that hateth suretyship is sure." Caution and prudence must govern all financial dealings. For young men embarking on their business journeys, this lesson is particularly vital. They must come to understand the value of money through their own labor. Only after they have toiled, saved, and sacrificed can they truly appreciate the weight of every dollar. Then, and only then, should assistance be extended to grease the wheels of their enterprise. Those who acquire wealth too easily, who do not experience the hardships of earning, rarely sustain their success. Money gained through hard knocks and diligence fosters wisdom. It instills discipline and cultivates prudence. In contrast, money obtained without effort often vanishes just as effortlessly. Let this be a guiding principle for all who wish to safeguard their wealth and that of their friends. The power of public awareness, the key to success in business. In the grand marketplace of life, every profession, whether it be a lawyer, doctor, shoemaker, artist, blacksmith, showman, opera singer, railroad president, or college professor, ultimately depends on the public for support. Regardless of the trade, we all engage in transactions with the public, and therefore we must ensure that our goods or services hold real value. Authenticity and quality must be at the forefront, because the success of any venture is built upon customer satisfaction and trust. Imagine you have created a product that you know will bring immense value to your customers. You are certain that once they experience it, they will feel they have received their money's worth. But here lies a challenge. If no one knows about it, how will they ever purchase it? This is where the art of advertising comes into play. No matter how exceptional your product is, if it remains hidden from the public eye, it will yield no return. In a country where almost everyone reads, and newspapers circulate in editions ranging from 5,000 to 200,000, it would be unwise not to utilize this powerful channel to communicate with potential customers. A newspaper is not merely a publication, it is a household companion. The father, mother, and children all engage with its contents, and in doing so, they come across advertisements, often while the business owner is asleep or occupied with daily operations. Advertising, in its essence, follows the fundamental philosophy of life. First, sow the seeds, then reap the harvest. Just as a farmer plants his crops and patiently waits for the time of harvest, a business must plant the seeds of awareness before expecting a return. The importance of consistency in advertising. Advertising is not a one-time act, it is a continuous effort. Many business owners make the mistake of expecting immediate results from a minimal investment. I once encountered a gentleman who lamented that advertising had failed him. "I tried advertising, but it didn't work," he complained. Curious, I asked, "How did you advertise?" "I placed an ad in a weekly newspaper 3 times and spent $1.50, he replied. I couldn't help but smile. "Sir, advertising is like learning. A little is a dangerous thing." A French writer once noted that the reader of a newspaper does not even see the first mention of an advertisement. The second time, they see it but do not read it. The third time, they read it. The fourth time, they note the price. The fifth time, they mention it to their spouse. The sixth time, they are ready to purchase. The seventh time, they make the purchase. The lesson here is clear. Advertising is a process of building familiarity, trust, and eventual action. To illustrate further, consider the story of a man who spent his last dollar on whiskey, only to realize that it was insufficient to make him truly drunk. He then asked another gentleman for 10 cents, arguing that this small addition would ensure that his previous expenditure was not wasted. This humorous analogy highlights the importance of following through with an investment until it reaches its intended effect. A business owner must continue advertising until the public fully understands what they have to offer. Otherwise, their initial investment is in vain. The art of catching public attention. Some individuals possess a unique talent for crafting advertisements that immediately capture attention. One clever merchant once placed a swinging sign outside his store with the words, "Don't read the other side." Naturally, everyone turned it around to see what it said. This simple trick brought countless potential customers into his store. It was not just about gaining attention, it was about sustaining it with quality service and products. Consider the remarkable case of Jenin, the hatter. During the auction for the first Jenny Lind concert ticket, he bid an astonishing $225 for a single ticket. The crowd was astounded. "Who is the bidder?" asked the auctioneer. "Jenin, the hatter," came the response. This name, previously unknown to many, was suddenly on the lips of thousands. The newspapers and telegraph spread the news from Maine to Texas, and millions learned that a single ticket had been sold for an extraordinary price to a man named Jenin. The next day, people across the country were checking their hats, wondering if they owned a Jenin hat. In a small Iowa town, one man in a crowd near the post office proudly showed off his worn-out Jenin hat, and it became the center of attention. It was even auctioned off as a keepsake for $9.50. The result? Jenin sold 10,000 additional hats each year for 6 years. What started as a stroke of marketing genius evolved into lasting success because his hats were of good quality, ensuring repeat customers. The final lesson: advertise or perish. Not everyone needs to advertise in the same way as Jenin, but every business must make itself known. Those who fail to promote their goods and services effectively will often find that the sheriff ends up doing it for them in the form of an auction. While newspapers remain a valuable tool for advertising, not all professions require them. Doctors, clergymen, and some lawyers may find other methods more effective in reaching their audience. However, the core principle remains unchanged. If people do not know about your business, they cannot support it. To thrive in any industry, one must embrace the necessity of public awareness. Whether through clever signage, strategic newspaper placements, or word of mouth, a business must continually engage with its audience. Only then will it reap the rewards of its labor. The world belongs to those who make themselves known. Will you step forward, or will you let obscurity be your downfall? The power of politeness in business. In the bustling world of business, where transactions flow like rivers and competition is ever fierce, there exists a truth more valuable than gold or silver. Politeness and civility are the greatest investments one can make. While large stores adorned with extravagant signage and eye-catching advertisements may draw initial attention, they will ultimately amount to nothing if the business owner or employees treat their patrons with rudeness or indifference. Success in business is not merely about numbers and profits. It is built upon relationships, trust, and the goodwill of customers. A businessman who extends kindness and generosity will find himself rewarded with the same in return. It is a simple yet powerful principle. Like begets like. The merchant who offers high-quality goods at fair prices, ensuring his customers receive value while still maintaining a reasonable profit, will cultivate loyalty and long-term success. The key to enduring prosperity lies in the golden rule. As ye would that men should do to you, do ye also to them. Treat customers with the respect and fairness you wish to receive, and they will in turn remain loyal to your establishment. Conversely, those who seek only to extract the most from their patrons, while giving the least in return, will quickly find themselves abandoned. Customers are perceptive, and if they feel taken advantage of, they will simply take their business elsewhere. No one enjoys paying for goods or services and being treated poorly in the process. An incident from my own experience illustrates this truth vividly. One evening, as I was managing my museum, one of my ushers approached me, visibly upset. "I intend to whip that man as soon as he leaves the lecture room," he declared heatedly. Surprised, I asked, "What has he done to deserve such a fate?" "He called me no gentleman," the usher replied, his anger evident. I paused for a moment before responding. "And what will you gain by fighting him? Will that convince him that you are in fact a gentleman?" The usher hesitated, and I continued, "Understand this. He is a paying customer. If you attack him, he will never return to the museum, and worse, he will discourage his friends from coming as well. Can I afford to lose not just one patron, but many? You must rise above his insult, for our goal is not to engage in petty quarrels, but to ensure our customers continue to walk through our doors." Still indignant, the usher muttered, "But he insulted me." "Indeed," I acknowledged, "but consider this. If he were the owner of the museum and you had paid to visit, then perhaps you would have the right to take offence. However, in this case he is the one paying, and we are the ones receiving. It is part of our duty to bear his ill manners without retaliation." After a moment of contemplation, the usher broke into a laugh. He saw the wisdom in my words, but added with a wry smile, "If being insulted is part of my job, perhaps I deserve a raise." This exchange highlights a fundamental lesson in business. Customers may not always be polite, but their patronage sustains the enterprise. Responding to rudeness with rudeness benefits no one. Instead, patience, diplomacy, and professionalism turn even the most challenging situations into opportunities for growth. The businessman who cultivates goodwill and places customer satisfaction above personal pride will always triumph in the end. Politeness and civility are not merely virtues. They are the very foundation of lasting success. The duty and joy of charity. Charity is both a duty and a delight. It is a principle that elevates men, a practice that enriches communities, and a policy that, even in the most practical sense, yields returns. A generous man, by his open hand and kind heart, attracts goodwill and earns the trust of those around him. On the other hand, The miserly and uncharitable man finds himself increasingly isolated, avoided by those who see his self-serving ways. Solomon, in his great wisdom, observed this truth when he said, "There is that scattereth and yet increaseth, and there is that withholdeth more than meat, but it tendeth to poverty." This paradox reveals a deep lesson. True generosity does not deplete one's resources, but instead leads to abundance, while stinginess leads to loss. Wealth, whether material or spiritual, grows when it is shared. When hoarded selfishly, it diminishes in value and meaning. The heart of true charity. The most meaningful charity comes from the heart. It is not merely the mechanical act of giving, but the spirit behind it that defines its worth. True charity sees beyond the immediate need and seeks to uplift, to empower and to restore dignity. A critical distinction must be made between thoughtful generosity and indiscriminate giving. The highest form of charity is to assist those who are willing to help themselves. When we extend a helping hand to those who are struggling, who show determination and effort, we contribute not only to their immediate relief, but also to their long-term success. This is the kind of charity that scattereth and yet increaseth. On the other hand, reckless almsgiving, offering assistance without discerning the merit or intentions of the recipient, can be harmful. It fosters dependency rather than self-reliance, and in some cases enables idleness instead of encouraging initiative. True generosity is not about easing one's conscience by handing out coin, but about investing in the betterment of others. Charity in action. One must be wary of the mistake some make in substituting words for deeds. It is not enough to offer prayers in place of provisions, nor to speak blessings without providing bread. A man with an empty stomach cannot heed wisdom as well as one who has been nourished. To quote a practical observation, it is easier to make Christians with full stomachs than empty. When we meet the physical needs of those around us, we open their hearts to greater lessons of virtue and faith. In all things, let charity be guided by wisdom. Give with discernment, help with sincerity, and understand that the act of giving should never be about the giver's pride, but about the receiver's upliftment. The truly charitable man is one who, without seeking applause, quietly and effectively betters the lives of those around him. And in doing so, he not only fulfills a moral duty, but also finds great personal joy and reward. The peril of loose lips in business. There was once a merchant, Henry Caldwell, who had a gift for making money. Sharp-witted and industrious, he built his fortune from modest beginnings. Yet, despite his business acumen, he harboured a weakness. He loved to talk. Whether in the company of friends, fellow traders, or even casual acquaintances, he took great pleasure in sharing his successes. "Let me tell you how I doubled my investment last season," he would say, leaning in with a knowing smile. "It was all about timing. I bought up surplus grain when prices were low and waited for the drought to drive demand through the roof. A simple strategy, really." At first his peers admired him. They listened eagerly, some even congratulated him on his sharp thinking. But in time, the wrong ears began to hear his stories, rivals, opportunists, and those who bore envy in their hearts. Soon, competitors adopted his very strategy, driving up the price of grain before Henry had his chance to buy. What once had been a secret advantage was now common knowledge, and his profits dwindled. One day, an old banker who had observed Henry's ways took him aside. "My friend," the banker said, "you remind me of a fisherman who boasts about his best fishing spots. The moment he shares his secret, he returns to find the place crowded and the fish all but gone. Keep your wisdom close. Speak less of your victories, and they will remain yours." Henry laughed at first, but as his fortunes declined, he realized the truth in the banker's words. The wisdom of silence. There is a foolish habit among some men, an eagerness to disclose their business dealings. They take pride in revealing how they made their wealth, thinking it will earn them admiration. But in business, loose talk can be costly. Success is not a tale to be told. It is a strategy to be guarded. If you are profitable, say nothing of it. Your gains should speak for themselves. If you have plans, keep them within trusted circles. And if you are struggling, be even more cautious. For the moment the world perceives your troubles, vultures will circle, waiting for your fall. This wisdom extends beyond words spoken. It applies equally to letters and written communications. The great Goethe, through the cunning Mephistopheles, once advised, "Never write a letter nor destroy one." Letters endure, and once words are set to paper, they may outlive their purpose, falling into the hands of those who might use them against you. Every seasoned businessman must write letters, yet he must weigh each word carefully. A misplaced phrase, a revealing sentence, or a careless confession can bring ruin. If you must correspond, do so with prudence. A well-guarded tongue and a measured pen are among the greatest assets a businessman can possess. In the end, wisdom is not only about knowing what to do, but also knowing what not to say. The true wealth of honesty. It is more precious than diamonds or rubies, more valuable than all the gold hidden beneath the mountains or the pearls resting in the depths of the sea. It is something that no thief can steal, no moth can destroy, and no rust can corrupt. It is the foundation upon which all great legacies are built. That treasure is honesty. Once upon a time, in a small town nestled between rolling green hills and a shimmering river, lived an old miser named Bartholomew. He had spent his entire life accumulating wealth, hoarding coins, and stacking treasures in his grand mansion. He cared for nothing but money and considered every relationship, every interaction, as merely another opportunity to increase his fortune. As the years passed, Bartholomew grew older and weaker. Realizing that his days were numbered, he called his 3 sons to his bedside. His voice, once strong and commanding, had now become frail and wavering, but the greed in his heart remained unchanged. "My sons," he said, "life is short, but money lasts forever. Get money. Get it honestly if you can, but get it." His sons listened, their expressions a mix of confusion and unease. The words of their father, rather than filling them with wisdom, planted seeds of doubt and fear. Was wealth truly the only measure of success? Did the ends justify the means? Bartholomew had spent a lifetime believing in the power of money, but what he failed to understand was that dishonest wealth is a burden, not a blessing. The prisons of the land were filled with men who had sought riches through deception and theft, only to find themselves trapped in an endless cycle of fear and disgrace. Those who gained wealth dishonestly lived in constant paranoia, knowing that their sins would one day catch up with them. The world does not easily forgive deceit. A man who has once been caught in dishonesty finds every door to success slammed shut. No matter how charming, intelligent, or resourceful he may be, people will always hesitate to trust him. Even in the simplest of transactions, no one dares to deal with a man known for false weights and measures. Bartholomew's eldest son, James, spoke up. "Father, I do not wish to offend you, but I have seen the suffering of those who sought riches at any cost. I have seen men rise through trickery, only to fall harder than they ever imagined. But I have also seen honest men, who, though they may be poor, are trusted by all. Their words are valued, their friendships cherished, and their communities stand by them in times of need." The other 2 sons nodded in agreement. They had seen how the honest shopkeeper, though he did not live in luxury, was never in want. He had the respect of his neighbours, the love of his family, and the peace of mind that no dishonest man could ever know. True success is not measured by wealth alone. There are many rich men who live in misery, tormented by their own conscience or by the fear of being exposed. Conversely, there are those who may not have great riches but live with joy, surrounded by loved ones and honoured by their community. Money, in itself, is not evil. It is merely a tool, a means to an end. When used wisely, it can be a great blessing. It can build schools, hospitals, and places of worship. It can feed the hungry, clothe the poor, and bring joy to those in need. The desire for wealth is not wrong, but it must come with responsibility. Wealth without integrity is a curse, but wealth earned through honesty becomes a force for good. Bartholomew lay in silence, his son's words echoing in his mind. For the first time, he saw the truth that had eluded him all his life. His riches had not brought him happiness, nor had they earned him the love or respect of his community. He had been feared, perhaps, but never truly loved. And in his final days, as he lay alone in his grand mansion, he realized that he had been the poorest man of all. As the sun set over the town, the 3 sons left their father's chamber, vowing to build their fortunes not on deceit, but on the solid foundation of honesty and integrity. They knew that wealth earned through truth would always stand the test of time, and so, in the wisdom of their choice, they found something far greater than gold: peace, honor, and a legacy that would outlive them. Indeed, as Benjamin Franklin wisely said, honesty is the best policy, and so it shall always be.